Hi, aloha. Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Jen. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. I'm doing great, and how are you?
I am wonderful today. Doing
I
wonderful.
know, yes, and I know you are so busy, and we have been trying to do this, and I think so coincidence that my my technology doesn't really be nice to me again here at home, and also we are running into meeting, and I am so glad that you tune in because I know you are busy and you are there for the public to help them,
Right.
healing them. And I know you're very busy and you are occupied today, but I do like to tell you how much I appreciate you that you are coming on live with me today so we can just get to the core point because since you are going to go to another meeting, we won't have a long one. We are approximately having at least 20 minutes because you are having another assignment
Oh,
at
not until
3:30.
4:30.
Oh, until 4:30. Oh, hallelujah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
my bad.
we're good.
Oh, so you're good?
Yeah, I just have another Zoom at 4:30. So
Okay. Thank you, and
yes,
Tongan, for tuning in. And it's a blessing for me to converse with you online, and especially um, in this busy time. And I know it's during work time, and we are trying to set this up. And we tried yesterday. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, and please share and like, and we will distribute it to various platform because we have to use our phone again today. But the good thing is we are using it from home and from the comfort of the home, and we are going to spread the words because this is not the first time we're going to talk. We are
right.
going to have this as a weekly event, and then we will come up with a schedule that we will tell the public when we are coming on live. And so it's going to be a consistent
Mhm.
agenda. So, Chen,
Yes.
I would like to start, and I'm going to ask you some questionnaires, and you are. I want you just to freely talk and open up and just share. And when you share, then we will come to tying in to your profession and also to what you are really doing. And that's where I am going to have you tell it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
So, Dr. Jen, I know we didn't have any professional introduction,
That's okay.
but because of that, and I know some of the people who have met with you and the public already know who you are. I'm assuming, and
Mhm.
that's not right because I'm assuming that doesn't mean everybody knows who you are. But because I have experienced, your expertise and your work, I came to the clinic and to your office, and
Mhm.
it was amazed when I sat there and you come down to earth and just sewn my foot.
Mhm.
I was in a depression time. I was stressed out. I was so frustrated. And there were lots of things that going inside me and also mentally that I was going through a lot. But with the sewing and that touch, it was more like a magic that touch. And I was healed. And remember how my chest was? I was hurting all over. When you touch
Mhm.
a certain part of my foot, it really strike the other part that hurts. And
Yeah.
so from that day, I am a living witness of what you're doing. And your professions to me has to be alert and to send out. So my brothers and sisters who are listening today, they can learn and they will come to you for that help. It's a help session. It is something that you cannot get it anywhere unless you come to. So why do I share this? Because I wanted to give a little background of why I got interested and I wanted to invite you to this platform. And this platform is Be the Best version of myself. In Tongan, hoko koe fungani kita. Fungani, top of the top, or the ground jewels, or be the best of yourself. And in order for us to be the best version of ourselves, we got to take care of our well-being. We got to take care of our health. We got to know that what we put into ourselves is not hurting us also, but it is organic and it's tradition and it's something that you see it, in nature. And this is what this woman is all about. She's a professional doctor, and she is a healing doctor, and she is all of the above. And I cannot tell well her story, her legacy, but I want to introduce to you guys, everyone. I have here Dr. Jen. And first of all, I would like to ask you, Dr. Jen, can you please introduce or tell us what is your name and what does your name mean to you?
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Jen Lotuson, and lotus, it goes with the flower, right? The lotus, which has a lot of healing meanings behind it. It ultimately means to come out of the mud and to become this beautiful, peaceful place for people. And so that's kind of my mantra of how I approach my life is we all have these places that we go to that take us back to the earth and take us down into the depths of the muck and the junk and the heavy, right? And but it doesn't mean that we can't go through this place of literal rebirth and become something that offers peace and beauty and joy to people that are around us and our families. And so that's my name is Dr. Jen Lotuson. And that's where I come from as a person too. It's how I identify as how do I help people come to a place of becoming their best selves when they're in the roughest, deepest, heaviest, dirtiest, grossest moments, right? And so that's me kind of in a nutshell. Is it, and that it's a transformation process, right? Like it takes time to heal. And so how do we get through that journey?
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And I love the fact that you said it's coming out from the mud. And when we are in the toughest time, it's a time that proves your strength, your natural beauty is, the strength you have, the inner person of you. And I do love that because I haven't heard anybody saying that that's my roots. That's where I'm coming from is the mud. Because what does mud mean to people?
Filth, dirty, not good enough, all of those things, right?
And hardly anybody would love to stay in the mud or dwell in the mud. And so that is a statement that I really appreciate that you share that. It is who I am. And from in a nutshell, that I am coming from the mud and I am embracing that. And so when we are in the toughest time of life, we need to what? We need to shine. We need to come up of it. Right. And when you come out of it, and in a positive way, Jen, we look at the mud. What do you prefer? How would you describe mud in a positive way?
I think that it's very grounding. It can be very cleansing, right? Like we come from the mud, we come from the earth, we return to the earth, right? So sometimes we have to get down in the mud and get dirty and figure out where we come from, where are our roots, where do we want to anchor ourselves ultimately. And when we can do that, it gives us a really good foundation, right? It's not this, we see the pigs in the mud and we think, oh my gosh, they're dirty, but really they're just cleansing themselves. They're helping themselves. And we as human beings, we do the same thing. We have to go back to our roots and get grounded. And I'm in the mud with you, right? And any therapist that works here, we get down in the dirt with you. We are not above you. we are here to help lift you out and help you to become strong. And so I think it's actually a beautiful cleansing experience, because we need the earth, we need the dirt, we need the ground, we need the water, we need all of those elements that make us, our physical bodies, actually strong. But I think in this day and age, we dismiss simple things like mud, you know, ultimately, where is what I think of. So
thank you so much. And I do appreciate that. We are all in the mud. And that's where our roots, and I really like it, because we were created of earth, soil, right, or mud, or, and so mud is where we started from. It's a place where we can always return. Maya Angelou saying something about, she said one time, and that kind of give me the, when she said, when we return to homes, there's no question. You feel safe. You feel that we are longing to go home. We all wanted to get back home. And it's something that lives within us, that we always wanted to come home. Right. And as we return home, there's never a question about it. And so I really admire what you said, because it ties into this very special woman, Maya Angelou. And Dr. Jen, you just said that we are all in the mud. And then in our toughest days, we will always go back to our roots, because that's where the comfort is. That's where the zone that we love to be. And when we are in that, we feel confident, we feel at ease, and we don't feel the hardships anymore. Thank you so much. Let's move on. And how about this? You mentioned we are from the mud. If you can give us a snapshot of who are your parents, what and how they raised you, how they taught you. What are some of the childhood memories that are outstanding and are so unique to you?
Yeah. So I had wonderful parents. Their names were Mark and April Whitlock. And I grew up in the country, in Wyoming. I'm a Wyoming girl that my family had a beautiful homestead that my great-grandfather Milo Mills created back in the early 1900s. And in the summers, it was a family business. It was what we did. It was where we grew together and bonded, and you get along and you fight and you argue and you have all of the family dynamics, all the things that happen. But we grew up a different way. We grew up in the tops of the mountains on a ranch. We didn't have telephones. I remember we would call down once a month or once a week to give the groceries over the CB radio to our parents that were working downtown, and we were working in the ranch with my. So as a teenager, I hated that, because we go to this of thinking that we need everything to be social, and we need to be plugged in, and we need to do all the activities and all those things. But I think I come from a place of being taught how to ground and how to disconnect and how to connect with the mountains and the earth and the wildlife. And even my home where I lived, went downtown, we were 10 miles out of town. We were in the country. So as much as I didn't like that as a teenager and as a young adult, it took a lot of extra time to go to a friend's house or all those things. It was so important because it taught me how to disconnect from the world and learn how to connect with myself more than anything. And take time with family and invest in those relationships and styles of hard work, when you don't have electricity unless it's at night because you turn the power plant on up on the mountain, like you learn how to do things differently. And so that's the basis. That's my roots of where I come from. And I grew up, on horses and playing out in the trees and making playhouses and, all kinds of things. And I also grew up as a musician. And so I learned how to connect with the arts. And that was one of my main focuses. I went into part of my education, went into that. A love for music as a vocal performance major and a pianist and a flautist and all these different things. So I learned how to connect with my gifts in a way that I don't think most kids have a way to actually explore some of those things anymore. We're too plugged in, and so I come from a different style, a different era, so it's beautiful and I love it.
Thank you. That is, I think nowadays, as we see that the world is so busy with lives, and especially the communication style nowadays is so different. And we are into social media, we are using phone. And imagine when we sit in the same house or same room, and even sisters and brothers, you will see them on their phone. And the communication, or there's no connection. And that is beautiful when you talk about the mountains, the ground, playhouse, horses. You connected to Mother Earth and Mother Nature, and I no wonder why I can see what you're doing. It matches how you were brought up and how you were taught. And so, like you said, we used the phone once a month to get some grocery or whatever, and use a certain type of telephone or communication or whatever. Is it more like a walkie-talkie or whatever?
Those clicker, CB radios, you called
over.
out.
Okay, get that over. Yeah. Exactly. We don't get that now. We have different kinds of telephone. We have different kinds of iPad, different kinds of computer, different kinds of earphone or something, Bluetooth or whatever. And with those, nowadays it's so advanced. But when I listen to you, when you talk about getting grounded, you love to be getting grounded. Do we see that nowadays in our children nowadays?
No, absolutely not. And it's actually what contributes to a lot of health problems for people, because we have too many frequencies and too many radio waves and too many other things that keep us distracted. And we actually need, as human beings, learn how to connect with the earth. Our bodies are governed off the earth's heartbeat. Like if we don't get out of town and go up in the mountains and go do things or play in the dirt or ground, or our bodies start to take a hit. And I had no idea I was going to be in this field when I was growing up, right? But now that I look back on it and I think, oh my goodness, that was a huge blessing to be able to be raised that way, even though I didn't get it and I didn't understand when you're growing why that's so important,
Yes.
So yeah,
very true, very, very true. And I have an experience when I have my children, and I have them here in America, and I take them to the island because we were still in the island in Tonga in the South Pacific. I always remember my mother-in-law because I always put a little shoe on the little baby, and then my mother-in-law will always remind, even my own mother, but she was here in America already. They will always say, "Let go, take off the shoe.
Yeah,
let them walk on barefoot. Let them walk and experience. They have to feel the ground. They have to know what they are walking. And it's okay to get dirty, get muddy, play in the sand and play with the soil when it's muddy." And I always said, oh my goodness, that do they know it's going to be a headache for me to wash that poor boy again? But they always remind me, take off the shoe. It's a healing. And my husband is very huge on that. He says, let them run around with barefoot. Let them run around, because there is some connection. And so since you talk about it, and you mentioned that you were so grounded, I want you to share with us, did you ever grow up when you were a child? Did you ever wanted to do some kind of work or some in that profession you are in now?
Yeah.
Is it because of the way you were brought up? Is it because was there anybody who was a role model to you that kind of give you that motivation?
No. I wish that in some ways that I would have grown up in the Polynesian culture, because you guys had healers around you. It's normal, right? I grew up in a ranch and nobody talked about healers. And back in the 80s and 90s, it was almost taboo to be a chiropractor, let alone, a healer, right? Or to
Yeah.
understand gifts or feeling the things that you feel emotionally or spiritually. I knew that I needed to do something, that I either wanted to be a musician and help people heal through music, or I thought about being a surgeon. And then I thought, nope, that is not my deal. But what I didn't realize is that there were other opportunities in the world of healing. And I just, wish that I would have had the things that I teach therapists now. Like, I train healers from all over the world and help them understand that they're not crazy when they feel certain things, when they touch somebody, or when they always have somebody come to talk to them because they're a safe place. And you don't understand why everybody at school is unloading on you all the time, right? Or the lady, or your intuition, or you feel like you might understand or feel somebody else's emotions, or all those things. So that was kind of a hard part about growing up. Like, I had all of the benefits of grounding and all those different things, but I didn't understand who I was as a person. I didn't understand why I felt the things I felt. And when you're on a ranch, you do have some people that just say, well, just toughen up, you're too emotional. You're too much of a city girl, you're too sensitive. And I learned later as an adult, those were my gifts, that those sensitivities that I had, that I used in my music or I used in my art, were things that I needed to use as a healer, but I didn't know how to use them. And so that that was hard. You just kind of think you're crazy. like I feel this so strongly. Why don't you feel the same way? So I learned later as an adult how to work with those things, and my life started to make a lot more sense. But I think that's the beauty of what I get to do now, right? Is I got to learn things the hard way so that hopefully maybe other people don't have to, and we can kind of help validate what they experience. But in the Polynesian culture, those things are discussed all the time, right? You go to the lady down the street that's going to fulfill you and make you better, or do bone mending, or go get the bark off the tree and mix it with these teas and these plants and these leaves. And you use those things. And some of those things we learned, but I think I was in a little more westernized culture, even though in a ranch, very earthy at the same time. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. And I like to touch base on that. You mentioned something that when you feel so sensitive, when you wanted to express yourself, when you wanted to talk about, and then some that people will surrounding you will, or your friends or your peers or your families will say, stop being so sensitive. Why you cry over this? Why you so toughen up? Isn't we have that? Isn't that a way that we are stopping the progression and we're stopping the development of a person?
Absolutely.
When we are stopping them from crying. And as a woman, you and I are women. And sometimes you will hear this. Come on, be tough, be strong. If I cry, you will hear that. Stop being so emotional. Why you always cry all the time? Why you have to feel that way? Stop. You are just even my family, even some of the time, sometimes my children say, you're crazy. Why do you think that way? You are so dramatic. Yeah. So I really love it. And I am thankful that you mentioned that those are gifts. Yeah. That you are in tune and you are sensitive to that spirit or to such such
Right.
atmosphere or the surrounding. And maybe, and you said, and that's how your roots was rooted down deeper, and that's how you become this profession.
Right.
So you didn't have a role model. These
I
are the things that you grew up with, and you fall in love with it, and you like to build on it.
Right. I think my gifts of healing really started to manifest when I was in my mid-20s. And I mean, they were always there. I just wasn't taught to work with them. I didn't know, I didn't know why I could make somebody feel better when they were really struggling, or why they felt so safe to come to me. But I will say this, I think that we're here to have a human experience, right?
Yep.
Earth. And part of the human experience is learning how to master your emotions. We're not just physical beings, we're emotional beings, we're spiritual beings. And if we don't have the opportunity to experience an emotion, how do we ever learn how to master it? Master it doesn't mean shut it off or shut it down. But if you think about the generations, right, before us, like my grandparents and my great grandparents, those were the people that I spent those years with in the summers in the cabin in the mountains. They were of a different mindset, right? They were taught they're literally out on the frontier. This is survival. You toughen up, you up, you work, you survive. It's survival mode. They weren't allowed to have those emotions, which creates a lot of problems for us as their kids and grandkids or great grandchildren, because now we have to deal with all the things that they didn't, right? This is what we call generational issues. But so I understand them, and I get why they responded the way that they did, because that was a sign of weakness. But I think it actually shows more strength to be able to get into your emotions and learn about them and figure it out. And how do you actually work with that type of emotion? Why do you respond that way? Why do you think that way? Part of it's because of the way we were raised. Part of it has to do with our environment or our society. But we are highly spiritual, emotional beings.
Yes, that's right.
And we have to allow the emotions to actually come, because if we just shut them down, then we get sick, right? And part of the reasons, like, we die of the things that we don't deal with and we don't process, because your body just stores it later, and then it builds up and it becomes a problem. So I don't know, I think there were we see both sides of the pendulum, right?
Yes, that's true.
And not, and if we don't ever shut emotion, how do we ever learn how to turn it back on, right? So there's benefits that come from those growing experiences, but I understand their approach. I understand people don't want to be seen as weird. While you're just crying, so what are we going to do? You're taught to sit down, shut up, be quiet. Kids are to be seen and not heard, all those things, right? It's the generations, but we've grown a lot since then, and that changes things, right? It lets us progress as a society more so.
Thank you for that is very important, because for those of us who are here and listening to you, I love the fact that you said that mom and dad, grandparents and great grandparents, they were dealing with all those depression and all the anxieties and all the mental health issue, but they were always told to shut down, shut it down or just quit it. And then what happened? They don't experience so it carries over to us. And I really love that. And I see that because one time I think I felt guilty. Sometimes I felt guilty about the way I talk to my kids. And sometimes I felt unworthy. I felt not experienced. And then, as you know, I go through criminal justice, and I go through with those co-occurring disorder. And then I decided to evaluate and see where am I, and so I said to myself, am I that bad? So when I grew up, there was never parenting class. There was
No.
never any time in our culture to speak when the elders are speaking. It's a taboo, and it's not in the system to speak.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
whatever they said, whether it's right or wrong, you just go with the flow.
The law.
And you are not supposed to give any feedback. But as I came to America and study and educate myself, then I started finding out, no, you have to speak, you have to talk, you have to consult. So I'm going to end there because I want you to come in and share more. And then I feel guilty when my older child, my second child, my third child, they carried that burden that I did not let go.
Mm-hmm.
They carried that burden, and I'm thankful that you say that. I was not experienced. I was not taught how to raise a little kid, a little tiny baby. I was not taught how to live with a man and a different culture. And so for me, I always torture myself saying I was inexperienced. I didn't know better. Until the last one, I feel a little bit at ease, but it's still there. But I do love what you said. They don't talk about it. They were shut down not to talk. And
Mm-hmm.
what happened? We carry that burden. We carry that.
Well,
Thank you for sharing that.
the body keeps score, and there are actually studies out there that go, like BYU, for example, did a study where they looked at people's grandchildren. I think it was children and grandchildren of survivors of the Holocaust. You can see marks in their DNA where those traumas happened. So the studies that we see are 77 generations worth of things that didn't get dealt with or processed. Guess what? They're in our genetics. They're in our DNA. They are us. They're our bodies. And we are literally trying to unwind generations worth of stuff in our physical body and in our life.
That's a lot of work.
Sometimes we don't have a clue why we do the things that we do. And it's because it's information. It's already stored in there. It's like a computer program. So,
it's more that's right. More like the computer.
Yeah. It's learned behaviors, right? So I might eat my soup the same way that my great grandpa ate his soup, and I didn't even know that he ate it that way. But I do this because it's in my DNA. It's in my body. So sometimes we're coping with things that aren't even our issues, right? Because they didn't get dealt with our families because they didn't know any better. And it becomes a place of compassion that we can have for them. And as we try and work it out for ourselves and deal with it and heal. And this is part of getting down in the mud with you. Why do you do what you do? Why do you have this type of addiction? Why do you feel those things? Why, you might not know until we get into it and find the answers, right? So that's one of my favorite parts about doing what I do is getting in the dirt with you and figuring out where are the issues so that you can just be you and not everybody else's stuff. So
thank you, Dr. Jen, for I like to I have been, my career is mostly like bilingual and multicultural education. Excuse me. And I do believe, like you said, it's generation. It's from generation to generation, and even we carry all that. And I always think about our diversities, different kinds of cultures. Mom and dad, my mom and dad, and their mom and dad, and their mom and dad, and their mom and dad goes all the way to Adams. The genealogy. Those behaviors, learned behaviors, those cultures, the faith they have, the way they do things as an individual, the way they do things as a family or a community or villages, or just coming from Tonga and then from Ireland, UK to Tonga and to the outer island of Tonga. You might have 10 people in the family, but that's different 10 cultures. And so I always think that all those cultures are coming upon me and pass on to my children.
Yes.
And like you said, things that we have to deal with, it was never in us, but because it's in our gene or in our DNA, we have to deal. And I think you're right. It's all about compassion. You just have to learn how to deal with it and cope ahead with it and be skillful at it. And so thank you for saying that, because I think those people are in the public who are listening, they can view, they can witness to it. Because too many times we torture ourselves, we punish ourselves for things. Like me, I feel bad. I'm a bad mother. But after all, that's all the best I can do.
Right.
And as time goes by, I can be much better than with the number 5 instead of those. Right. So thank you. So Jen, I want you, let's go in. No, we talk about the hobbies and things you did. We talk about your leisure time, what you did when you were young. We talk about your name and your parents, how they raised you, how they taught you. And we talk about your namesake and the expectation. And now I know you are a healing doctor.
Yes.
So why did you choose? I know you said it's your passion. So now you have other talents and other expertise. But what finalized the decision to be this person and to run a clinic or an office that hosts all different kinds of treatment? I understand when I come to your office, you have drug and alcohol, you have mental health, you have diet, you have co-occurring, you have tribal healing, you have different kinds of Polynesians or Melanesian, or you are studying different kinds of ethnicities and diversities and cultures. And remember, we are talking about celebrating our differences. Yeah. What makes you hold on to this company? Why did you want to run it? And what are the main thing you do in that clinic?
That's a really big question.
Yes, you see, I loaded it. So when you talk, you are going to cover it all.
Yeah. So I always was interested in things like nutrition and things like that back in the day when I was in high school. And I started listening to different doctors that taught things like juicing. But it wasn't until I was probably 20 years old. I went through a lot of trauma. And when I first went to college, and it made me a cripple, and I didn't understand. I was a young 22-year-old, and my body was falling apart and breaking down. I couldn't really walk very well, sometimes till noon or 1 in the day. My hands, I'd wake up and they were gnarled and curled. Wow. And I was having all kinds of reproductive issues, and I just could not figure out. I thought, I'm eating really well. What is wrong with me? Some things, I shouldn't be this broken. And so I started diving into my own healing, right? Looking for answers. And one of the things that I teach healers is, in order to heal others, you first must heal. And so as we look for answers for ourselves, we find that those that need do, right? If I need to heal, I'm going to look for these types of healing, because westernized medicine was not my answer. I couldn't get the tools that I needed. And I just mostly wanted to just live a quality life and be a mom and work and do all the things. But when you have little kids and you're trying to do your life and you can't function, that's really difficult. And so I actually had that my aunt told me to go to, that was a foot zoner. And said, when you go to this lady, she's going to touch your feet and she's going to tell you all these things. And I thought, you are on crack. You are taking the next best thing, because that was kind of my aunt's pattern, and she was always finding the next thing, right? And so I just thought, I was the biggest skeptic. I really pushed a lot of buttons that day. And I showed up to get my feet zoned, and I wouldn't tell this lady anything. I was kind of a brat. And she told me everything that was wrong with me. And within 2 or 3 days, my body had healed. And I thought, what in the world is this? And so I became interested in foot zoning. And it took me about 10 years and the right opportunity and timing, right, to get to a place where I could learn. And so I went through that process of learning, and as it happened, I started learning about myself and how I move energy and how I could identify things better. And my areas of, background in nutrition and different things started helping me when I was doing foot zoning. And so I started just branching out to all these different areas. And my practice just kind of built overnight. I was a single mom, and I had just moved down here. I'd just gone through a hard divorce, and I had gone and I was working for this other chiropractor running his nutrition program, and he just wasn't honest with me and changed my whole outcome of my job. And so I just had a prompting one day. I was praying about it, and Heavenly Father just said, you need to quit your job. And I was like, you're crazy. Something is better than nothing.
I know.
But then the next day, people just started showing up, and I worked full time, straight all the way through from 8 a.m. till 10 o'clock that night. And I started at home so that I could be around when my kids were home, because I was the only parent that was there for a while, And then I started learning more and more and more things, and started going through more challenges and things. I think sometimes I think I learned things a little different. I learned through experience. And so I got really sick with a bunch of parasitic infection, and I started going through cancer, and I couldn't figure out why I was having all these problems. And so I started looking for more answers, and the indigenous answers were the ones that were fixing it and healing me. And so I started becoming a specialist in those areas and developing protocols and finding the right equipment that would expedite somebody getting better from these kinds of things that were not found in westernized care at all. They were found in, other countries. And so as I started going down this road, and it will continually grow like this. It will probably grow like this the rest of my life. But I got asked to start teaching for an indigenous university, and teaching healers and rewriting the foot zone method and creating new protocols. And it just kind of exploded. And so a few years ago, I finally decided to take it to the street and have a street clinic, and not work from home anymore. And I did that. And it has been a huge blessing not to have my company in my home. Because it allows for more therapists to be involved and more people to get the care that they need. And so a lot of what we do is very unique and very different, but it follows all these different cultures, right? We have Amazonian culture, we have Polynesian cultures in here, we have African culture medicine, we have all these different things that answer a lot of the questions and the issues that we run into as individuals. We are one of the only centers in we are the only center in the United States that is licensed to work with a specific African medicine that cures addiction in less than 12 hours. Like cures it and gets people off of drugs or meds or alcohol or technology or whatever the sugar, right? But they came because I needed personal answers for myself. And so I started looking and trying and seeking and finding and praying a lot, because this isn't my business. This is God's. And I'm just here to do the work, ultimately. And I do what I do because He saved my life and lengthened it and allowed me to be a walking miracle for others, so that they could go, oh, she had stage 4 cancer. Maybe I can fix my body. Oh, she had this. Wow, I didn't know that I could be a cripple and get better. Oh, So I think a lot of my own life experiences have created a space for me to have empathy and compassion and true understanding of where a lot of my clients come from. And a lot of them come because we are their last effort. They've done everything else. They've tried everything that they can find. And ultimately, you know, there are days when I go home and I think, wow, I got to watch some miracles today. And you're so humbled when you have somebody come in a wheelchair and they haven't walked in years and they get up and they walk out.
Wow.
And some time for their body to get used to that. But, you know, you'll never forget experiences like that. And so that's why I do what I do, because I've been asked to do it. I've been asked because it's my mission, and it's a humbling experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I get to work with the most amazing healers in the world here. And I only hire those that I want working on me. So, you know, they're really, really good because I'm really picky. But it's a huge blessing to do what I do. And that's my motivation, is because I get to watch miracles and be part of people's healing experiences coming from the dirt.
And
Yes,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
We got. Mhm. Yeah, we're still on. We're still
Okay.
live. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I hope that answers. Like,
That is very emotional, and it's a living witness of of the of what you're doing, and that's really a healer. You know, you are the most vital person for your company. You are the key person also, because in order for you to help others, you have experienced it. You walk that path, and
mhm.
it's more like, you know, you are lending a hand. Come on, I'm going to teach you. This is how I face. And that's lacking, because majority of the professional people that we have nowadays, they
Yeah.
go learn it from the book manual, you know, but not from by experience, not from
Right.
experience. And so to me, um, when you share, it's so dear, because it is something that no one will, no doctor will really be effective if they didn't experience it and living it and value
Right.
it.
Yeah. Like, how do you help someone lose weight if you've never had to do it? How do you, right? Like, I don't know. Not that I need to experience every ailment, because I certainly am not volunteering for that. But you know, I've had to experience a lot, and a lot of big, difficult, hard things. But it also means that I, because I've experienced those things, it allows people to trust me a little bit better, you know, because they're like, "What? Wait, what? You look healthy. What do you mean that you were basically on your deathbed 6 or 7 years ago? How are you kidding me? How did you get through that? What do you mean you couldn't walk for a long time? What does that mean that, you know?" So I can connect with them and relate with them. I've lived it, and that, I think, gives somebody hope of, well, if somebody else can get through it, doesn't mean that my experience is going to be the same, because I don't have all those generations of things behind me that maybe you do. But for me, this is how it worked. And so let's do what we can to try to get you better. I had a gentleman by the name of Dr. Mike Shrivel the other day. He was talking with me, and he said, it's interesting being in the indigenous healing world, because sometimes healing is actually dying, right? We're healed through the Savior. We're healed by God in different ways. We're healed through nutrition. We're healed through plants. We're healed through all these different things. So what does healing need to be for that person? And I thought, boy, that's a good question. Maybe your healing is different than mine. Maybe you learn differently than I do. But I do know that I have a lot of tools that a lot of people in Westernized medicine don't, because they don't get it. They don't understand. And I have a lot of physicians that come to me too, over the years of, hey, can you help my wife? Hey, can you help my husband? We don't know what to do. We just have different tools and skills. So anyway, it's a beautiful experience.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your personal experience, because that's the greatest teaching.
Yeah.
Is to share your personal experience and things that you actually experience and going through. And so, like you said, you are the living testimony and the living witness for what you're doing, because you actually come out of it, and then you are using that to come out and to tell your story and share it with others. And though it's a profession, and though it's a career, and though you got to pay money for it, because that's why we are doing business. But I really appreciate the fact that you actually experiencing it. For me, as a woman, as a widow, I experience grieving. And when people, they see me before, when I was working, I'm going to share this because it ties in. When I worked for criminal justice, in institutions, and then there's a requirement that my hair have to pull back, that my earrings, I have to wear my earrings at home, or when I wear my jewels, the best practice is to put it away, put it in your locker, because you are dealing with co-occurring, and you're dealing with people who are very hostile and violent. And when they have their moments, when they relapse mentally, they are looking at my hair is a weapon. And so for me, when people will look at me and say, oh, you look so happy. Why are you so happy when your husband is not here? Oh, your hair, it looks like you have a boyfriend. Are you falling in love? No one will know unless they go through a grieving. They go through what I go through. I miss my husband, and I'm still grieving. I'm still hurting, and it will go forever. My behavior and all these are coping mechanisms. It's how I cope ahead with all the depression, depression and all the anxiety and all the grievance. And to me, it's okay. Let them say that. That's because they don't understand what I go through. And I really love it when you said, very emotional, and tears have been coming, because it's a tears of joy to express how greatness, because we do the healing and with someone else, a supreme power, or someone called God, or whoever your God is, but there is connection. We are grounded. And when you feel that tie or that connection, I feel happy. I feel enlightened. I feel healthier, even though I'm single and I'm alone and feeling lonely and grieving still. But I feel more happy because I know that the spirit is living on. And that's where the roots, that's where our connection is. Our spirit lives on while our body goes on to the grave. And I am sharing that personal experience I have, because yes, people will look and say, what are you trying to do here, Jan? Are you telling me what are you trying here? Why you are so happy? Why you are looking so happy and healthy? Yes, it's a coping mechanism. And with that, I'm using that skill to come out and just be myself and be happier because I feel grounded. I
Right.
feel grounded. I feel my roots. I know where my roots is. I know that the spirit lives on. And I give credit for you, Jen, for saying that, because it is a learning thing for me. And it validates how I feel. It validates how I feel. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you have any addition on that, or before we go to our last portion?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So Jen, I heard you with all these good qualities you have, your expertise, the experiences you have, and all this, and you are such a beautiful woman. And with that beautiful, like I heard your story, and you have a lot to tell. That inner self of yours, it shows who you are, because you have grounded yourself, you know your roots, and you act according to that, because you know that's where you're coming from. You choose this company and this profession. Can you tell me or tell us, what are your unique qualities that make you outstanding? I heard you say we are the only facility or only clinic in the state. So is there any qualities that make of yours that makes you more outstanding from the others while working with those you served in the past and now? So what makes you stand out, Dr. Jen?
I think the difference is we don't have an ego here, right? It's not about me. It's about being with you. It's about seeing you where you're at. It's about being in it with you. It's about watching you go through some of your ugliest moments, your most raw moments, and creating the safe space for you to be able to do that. I mean, when we do these retreat healing weekends, right? When we're dealing with addiction, people are not pretty. They are not like, nobody's coming in with their hair put on and all the things, right? They're coming in and they're going to be raw and broken and vulnerable. And I think that's the difference. Like, people are used to going to sterile doctor's offices. When you come to our sanctuary, it's called the Lotus Sanctuary. When you come here, I wanted it to feel like home, because some people are here for weeks working, right? If somebody travels here from out of state to do intensive care, I want them to be comfortable. I want them to know that no matter what they're doing, they're in the most comfortable place. They have a beautiful space to work in, have cozy couches. They have all the things that they need, right, to feel comfortable and safe to feel. And when that happens, it allows us to come from a different place. We, as healers, have done our own work. I've gone through the grieving process. I've been able to heal from where you are. And that makes a difference. I'm not in the story anymore, right? That you're in, or maybe somebody else in. I'm in a place. It's okay. It's called family.
Because
Yeah.
I want, they're louder than what I'm hearing.
Yeah. But I think that's the difference. Like, every single person that works here has had to do their own work, and none of us are coming in with ego. Like, none of us. It's just about showing up and being able to stay ahead of our own stuff so that we can be in the right place to hold that space with you. I think some of the top qualities that we have are the types of medicines that we use. Like, everything that we use is God made, nature made, not man made. It's all natural. And but it's some of the most strong medicines on the face of the planet. Like, if we need to get rid of depression, we can do that. It's not a difficult thing, actually. We need Like, we are one of the only clinics that works with parasitology, with parasites.
Wow.
We have protocols around that, and things that we do to help your body put itself in its best place to heal. We have some of the most incredible cognitive therapists that I've ever met. We have people from different cultures. We have, my culture, we have Polynesian culture, we have Mexican culture, we have Jewish culture, and it's this beautiful mixing of not just modalities and medicines, but people that are coming from different backgrounds that get it. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's just a beautiful just cocktail that kind of brings us all together. And we're family here, right? We aren't coworkers, we're family, and we're sisters, we're brothers, we're those things, so that we have a different type of connection with each other, which makes us a unique place to. So
thank you, Dr. Jen. We are, it's nice to hear that, because I didn't even know that there's something called parasite.
Oh yeah. Part of why we do what we do is because I had a 350-foot tapeworm. And
okay, while we're talking, so when I was young, I saw this little girl that she has, and I heard about worms, I have a tapeworms or whatever. I heard about it when I was in the island, but I never see it real. So one day I was seeing this little girl. It was my, the neighbor. I saw this little girl with a long thing coming out. It alive. It's just coming out. And I said, hey, what is that? That's the first time I said. So are you telling me that our body, or us human, we have tapeworm, or we have parasite in us?
Oh yeah.
Hey, my son say yes.
I have only met, here's
where's your phone?
Downstairs.
I need it. This one.
Because I think it fell in your bed.
Okay. You are listening to Fihi, that he is saying, yes, we do have parasites. And I'm asking about the phone. So can you give us a snapshot of what is it?
Yeah, so there's everything from little microscopic ones to giant ones, right?
Wow.
And part of what gave me cancer was the parasite that I had in my body, and they're just bugs, right? We get exposed to them through fish, through playing in the dirt with the dog, through being in, like, it's part of nature. The problem is that the indigenous cultures that we all come from used to do parasite cleanses once a year. We don't do that. And so here we are in the States, all this processed food, and we're still exposed to all these parasites that love addiction, and they create all kinds of problems. And so when we have things like strep or COVID or the flu or Lyme disease or candida or mold or all these different things that happen in the body, it's because we have parasites that are producing that. So a lot of the things, the viruses, the bacteria, things like that we deal with, they're all parasites, but they thrive in a toxic body. And so the more processed foods we eat, the more alcohol, the more sugar, the more white flour, the white rice, all that stuff that we eat, it feeds them and they grow. And so I couldn't figure out why I was having all these digestive problems. And the doctors here in Westernized culture, they don't test for this very, very well, in my opinion. They're very limited by the way they test. And so I couldn't get the help that I needed. So I started talking to an Indian medicine man. He's like, I will make you this tincture and you take these drops. And I started like passing parasites in the toilet.
Wow.
To figure out what was happening to me. And it took me about 2.5 years to figure out all the foods and the herbs and everything that really get it out faster. So 95% of what we treat here in the office is getting parasites out. And we see huge ones, and we see little tiny microscopic ones that mess up your thyroid and give you depression and anxiety and all these other things, right? So if we can get the interference out of the way in the body, like a parasite that's stealing 90% of your food, causing us to be emotional and depressed, guess what?
Oh.
All of a sudden we lose weight. We drop inflammation, we burn fat, we actually get our food and we feel better. And a lot of the disease goes away because they're the root cause of a lot of disease. So yeah, it's like we had a guy where, you know, we'd suck 8 to 10 2-foot parasites out of him every week for a year and a half, because there's nests and they reproduce and all kinds of things. So you have to get the right foods and the right herbs in there, and then your body can start getting rid of them, because we've had 40 years of buildup. You know, we haven't done this every year. We didn't keep up on it. It's like washing your dishes. If you don't keep up on it, it just becomes disastrous. So yeah, we can fix a lot of diabetic situations and gout situations if we start getting those things out of the way. So it's a different practice, but I'll tell you what, we get people healthy, right? Because they can actually eat their food and get it now. So yeah.
Thank you, Jen. And I think we are coming to the closer of our conversation here. Are there opportunities for professional training or further education, particularly to keep up with the new technology nowadays?
Yeah. So we actually were just asked this last year to put together the first Indigenous Medicine University.
Mm-hmm.
So we have several students that are starting their prereqs. We do the prereqs every quarter. It's called onacuniversity.org.
Mm-hmm.
You go to that, there's different classes. We have a really cool board of educators, everyone from like functional dentists, pharmacists, to healers like myself, to psychology, sociology, addiction, all of that. And so we have a really cool board of education, and people can go through this program and they can get their doctorate of Indigenous medicine to work in our jurisdiction within about 5 to 6 years, depending on how fast they go. But everything's a nonprofit organization. So anything that's paid education or therapy wise in the clinic, people can use as a write-off, as a donation to a nonprofit. And so we are under Indigenous and monastic jurisdiction, which is different than Westernized medicine. So what we're doing is actually going in and trying to preserve the modalities, these Indigenous modalities, like bone mending, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You have a bone mender, they can't get licensed here in the United States. There's no licensing board. So how do we save the modality and then teach it, right? And have these incredible healers teach it, and then get those healers educated and credentialed. Mm-hmm. So we're doing that. We're actually setting up the new standard of care for Indigenous medicine right now. And we have another group that we work with. We're going to have close to 30,000 tribes that are within treaty of each other to be able to help all of this grow. So it's a really cool opportunity, but it's ONAC, ONAC, university.org. And then the clinic is lotussanctuaries.com. So you can call our phone number or text it, and it's the same phone number. But students do their residency and their training programs here in-house, so they get hands-on experience. Wow. And that's if you're learning with healers. That way it's almost like an apprenticeship, right? Yes. Where you're doing your residency hours and stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you. And do you guys have any, so like you said that you have this university and all that, and you do have a professional training. So what types of mentoring program do you offer? Do you have like mentoring program?
A lot of it comes in through our apprenticeships. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, we do have a few others of new students, and they start kind of working in the clinic, kind of get used to it, fill it out, see if that's the area that they want to go through. Some of the other kinds of things that we are getting ready to do this year is we're going to do some veteran recovery. So a lot of our veterans that have gone through wars and are dealing with PTSD, that, and then go through a mentoring program of our coaches. So yeah, we've got some things that are coming up that are really exciting. So
thank you. Beautiful. Dr. Jen, it was a pleasure to talk with you. Pleasure. Would you please give us what are your professional education?
Yeah, so I did my education a little bit differently, because when you're learning Indigenous medicine, a lot of it is done through apprenticeship styles. But I originally went to school in music because I hadn't figured this out yet. So I started out at Boise State and University of Wyoming and did a lot of my generals there. And then I went through a private school to do my zoning here in Utah, and then did all my nutritional therapy licensure out of the UK. And then I went in and I did colon hydrotherapy training and education. Learned all my oil stuff privately. Everything ended up going through these private schools. And then what happened was I ended up actually rewriting the foot zoning method. And then I submitted for the licensing board of review as my dissertation. And so creating a new modality and therapy method. And then I started teaching for the American University of Indigenous Medicine. So mine was a little more like an apprenticeship style for a lot of it, a lot of different credentialing. I'm also have a bachelor's degree in metaphysical science, and my master's is being reviewed currently, and I'm doing an extra doctorate right now in metaphysical science as well, in parapsychology with a specialization in Kundalini work. So it's more like Eastern medicine, that style as well, because we need that here too. So I decided to do a full other degree program. So my thesis is being reviewed and then currently writing my doctorate. So I'll have a few different doctorates. And I also have with those types of degrees, you also receive ministerial licensing. And so I'm a licensed minister of health, and then technically a reverend. It's not something I identify with, but
that is something.
But because it's dynastic healing work, and so the laying on of hands is a thing. And so, when we do touch and body work and things like that, that also gives us a license to touch. So yeah, I've got lots of education in a lot of different ways, some non-traditional, some traditional, and so I just keep adding to it because I'll probably never ever get bored and want to keep learning, right, for the rest of my life too. So
thank you so much. Thank you for sharing with us your expertise and your professionalism, because there are youngsters, there are youths, there are children, there are people, there are mothers and fathers, grandparents who are listening. They all learn from all your professional education, from your expertise, from your experiences also. And the hope is to help them, bring the inner person out, and then learn from what you're saying and who you are, and help them, move on instead of punishing themselves or torturing themselves. And they always drag themselves down instead of coming up and shine. So before we end, is there any advice or any counsel would you like to give to the public before we conclude our meeting today?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I try to help people understand is healing shouldn't really have to hurt. Like, I think a lot of our Western modalities that people are used to, it's a little bit torturous. If we think about the way that we treat cancer and we treat other things, there are non-invasive ways to heal, and doesn't mean that it's not going to make you stretch and grow, because that's part of progression, right? But a lot of what we need to have to heal, what's already here, it's grown, it's their plants, their medicines, their different things. And we've moved away in our society, especially in the United States, gotten away from looking at the person as a whole, and we just only treat a symptom instead of getting to the root cause. And so that's what we focus on here, is let's get through all the layers and get to the root cause, so that you don't have to live for the next 10 to 15 to 40 years, whatever that is, in a state of sickness and depression and anxiety. Let's get you healthy so that you can enjoy your life. And it happens a little bit at a time and requires a little bit of patience with yourself, but that becomes a learned skill, right? It takes practice learning how to have patience and compassion for ourselves and empathy for ourselves. And you learn more about yourself when you do that. And so that's really, I think, the biggest thing is we want to give you the most non-invasive ways to heal, and it's going to require some effort, right? Because it's your body, it's your life, but we're going to do it in the easiest way that we can. So
thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much for your time. And I really appreciate what you said. We got to treat the holistic treatment, the whole body.
Yeah.
We go through layers and layers. Too many treatment, we just treat the top. You cannot really know what's the cause and what triggers
Right.
that disease. But I am enlightened and edified by this conversation, and I do appreciate what you have said and saving all your time for this. And I know you're busy, but I want to let you go so we can tune in again next time or next week. We will spread out the words, and I'd like to thank you. And I would like to switch to Tongan. Those of you of mo whanonga mai ko toketa ko ni ko Dr. Jen o kune ngā ue ki he ngā hi whaito o whaka whanua whaka hange ko tau ngā hi whaito o whakatonga ngā hi kiri a kau pia ka pau o kuke whie ma o ke alu ki ai pia whitu taki o i heni e he website pia ki heni a ene ngā hi konteki ma ene ngā hi mea ke whitu taki ai ko iai mo humai he wike kahau ke tau whanongo again ki he ene ngā ue pia mga hi lava mea me whai e tokoni ka koe pia moau kono inga ka tau lava e whaonga iai ai ngā hipoto me whatau kei o tau tupu hake I motu pia mo ia e whaito o whaponua whaito o whatonga ko ma o whalahi atu ko iai Dr. Jen, it was a pleasure being with you, and I do appreciate what you have shared and all that knowledge and intelligence you have. We are being edified, so
Yes.
thank you so much.
You're
There's
very
a Tongan word, so there is a Tongan saying ko koloa a tonga ko whakamalo. There's nothing else a Tongan can give. Our wealth is just say thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm really excited to be doing this weekly with you and getting to know all of you. And I think it'd be kind of fun too if we have some questions that come into you over the next couple of weeks, for those that are listening, and we can talk about it and see what is helpful. So happy to help you all as much as possible.
Thank you. That is a good idea. You can make a comment and give us the question so we can analyze and answer it next time. You guys have a blessed evening and have a great, wonderful night.